back to the Minute Women podcast. My name is Grace.
And I'm Linnea, and today we have some very special guests with us.
All the way from the North of Normal podcast, give it up for Spencer and Hunter. Yay!
Woo! We are here.
Yes. Thank you for celebrating the start of season 3 with us.
Yeah, it's a big deal, big show, big excitement. And Grace has informed me that we have a theme. So,
yes.
Not for season 3, I've been told.
Not for season 3, just for the month of November. So, there's a lot of war heritage minutes, and they're kind of a bummer to do. But given that November 11th is Remembrance Day, and we do have an episode that comes out on November 11th, I thought that we would use this month to kind of go through some different parts of Canada's military history to kick off season 3 with a bit of a little mini series.
For sure, I love that.
Yeah, so we're gonna do some different military heritage minutes
for the podcast. I love it.
Yeah,
that's great.
But I also knew that, so we'd have the boys from North of Normal with us, who have a super fun Canadian cinema podcast. We were on their podcast a little while ago.
Yeah, in July, I think.
Yeah, it was hot. I remember
it was very warm.
I'm sweating too much for any kind of polite company. So Hunter and I are just we'll just leave the fan on.
I
remember.
We don't
care about the background noise. We're just no, we're going to do this, and there's cars driving by. And,
if anybody listens to that episode, I do apologize for the sound quality of that episode. But as Spencer was saying, I just felt like we couldn't have guests over and be like, we're going to close all the windows and turn off the fan. We care about the comfort of our guests when you are recording.
We did.
Recording in our living room.
And I remember it was super funny because we got there and we brought you guys beer, but you guys, as soon as we walked in, we're like, do you want a glass of water? Here, have some water.
And
we just
we brought beer.
We'll just drink all this water. But it's because I think you guys were hyper concerned that it was really warm.
It was very warm, and it was also you two were some of the first people we had over since COVID as well.
I think you were the first guests.
Yeah.
After things started opening up.
Yeah.
Because Hunter and I have a house, and so we're always just kind of in and out. And luckily, things have been good in this province.
Yeah.
But it was just okay. It is just oh hi, and go to shake hands. It's not to here. The washroom's here. Would you mind washing your hands?
Yeah, we did.
And
and also I remember that was the small, very short pre-mask period in Nova Scotia. So it was things open
1 month,
but you didn't have to wear a mask, and so it was things were just very weird. It was this very hyper germy weird world because you could go into places, but it was people didn't want to, and it was a lot of hand washing. But we made it through. We pulled out an episode with you guys, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and now we're gonna do it again, but except on our end.
Just
and they brought us cider, which was great.
Just to let you guys know, it is now, I think, our second or third most downloaded episode.
Yes.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice to hear.
I think it's third, most downloaded. And that was information given to me a month ago.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. It was super fun to record. We recorded for 3 hours, which I am the fact that you trimmed it down to I think
an hour
and 20 or hour 15?
Oh yeah, it was in something like that. It was an 80-minute episode, and I was just so much gold is on the floor. But it's just there's hilarious this stories. I want to hold on to them because I want it to be part of a Minute Women special at one point. Where it's just Tales from the Minute Women, right?
That's funny.
When Grace met Linnea, and just have all these stories in the background.
Mark has some gold on the cutting room floor, but Mark also has some trash on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. It's mostly us sneezing into tissues.
Yeah.
Flynn.
Winter's rough for us.
Winter was it's a rough time. We're moving into the dark days.
Yeah.
It literally, because this is daylight savings day right after Halloween. We're all in a bit of a recovery mode.
It's November 1st today, recording this episode, and Halloween last night, time change, full moon, and Halloween. So it's just a wild evening.
Yeah.
Spooky season's over.
Shout out to the 2 group costumes that were here.
Oh,
we had a Smash Brothers thing going on for the Men and Women. Hunter and I did the lighthouse.
It was so good.
Everyone should go on the North of Normal's social medias. Did you guys post one there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because it's so good.
So good.
With the reference photo, likewise.
I felt like I could get away with doing that because we had done an episode on the lighthouse.
Yeah.
So
100%.
just as a sort of thing. Yeah.
We posted us last night, and it has nothing to do with history. So.
But it was awesome.
Look at us in costumes.
Yeah, don't we look nice and cute?
Well, I've depending on what episode this is, I might have a story that involves that game. And
I'm
we'll see.
excited.
All right. Speaking of which, do you guys? So you kind of have a bit of a clue, but do you want to guess what minute I chose?
Okay, well, it's not Minarski.
So it's not Minarski.
Which
no,
is
we've already done
awesome.
him.
I now know. I can guess that Spencer will do most of the talking this episode.
Depending.
I think
No.
it's the guy who jumps on top of the bomb with his helmet, the
That's-
grenade.
It's
that
not
is
Osborne in Hong Kong.
John Osborne, yes.
Yeah.
Sergeant
Not
Major.
that one. Good guess though.
Because that guy, the guy who's in that episode, or in that Heritage Minute, he was at Neptune too. So I saw him a couple times at Neptune.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Is it the Peacekeepers one? Can I yell "Go home" over and over again?
It's not Peacekeeper.
Oh,
Is
that
it-
could have
is
been
it
my
Bella Road?
contribution.
Spencer, what was your guess?
Bella Road?
No. We are doing Tommy Prince,
Tommy Prince.
who I believe
I do not know who
Right
this
on.
deserves
is.
a full feature film
Oh.
about his
100%.
life.
What
Because
did
he
Tommy
is
Prince do?
kind of like Canada's Rambo. Like the man's military
about
career
Tommy
is
Linnea,
insane.
just to let you know, the format of this podcast is that she will tell you.
Right, I forgot. I
we
forgot where I was.
and we don't know where we are.
I just got so confused.
Still, I knew I had a
Oh,
feeling it was
right,
going to be
this is the
Manitoba military, and that
podcast.
was it.
I'm on a podcast.
Wait, okay.
This isn't like our podcast that there's no formula whatsoever. It's pretty cut and dry what happens here.
This is a civilized podcast, damn it. There are rules.
We're all excited. I love that Spencer is saying that as he is fully dressed like an English dad. Like Spencer is wearing a tweed jacket, like a cashmere sweater underneath with a button up and then like a tie. He looks lovely, but like
He looks
it's also
quite lovely. He also has a haircut since the last time that we recorded with them.
Do you?
Yeah.
You had quite a bit of hair then.
Yeah, I go back and forth from kind of like trying to look nice and do something with my hair and then just buzzing it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Me too. Anyways,
Anyways.
not the topic of this episode. Today we are doing Tommy Prince.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, so Tommy Prince was born in a canvas tent in Petersfield, Manitoba in October 1915, and he was one of 11 children born to Harry and Elizabeth Prince of the Broken Head Band of the Ojibwe.
Oh, okay.
So he's an Indigenous person.
Okay.
When he was 5, his family moved to the Broken Head Reserve, which is now the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation in Scatterbury. And Prince was a survivor of the residential school system. So, by the way, not a happy episode.
Yeah.
That is the one thing about the theme for this month. It's
Yeah.
not going to be particularly
downer.
uplifting.
That's why, little plug in here, we have a live show, which we'll talk more about at the end of the episode.
yeah,
But
just a
that's
little
going to give us
teaser.
some joy in November, for sure.
So he was a descendant of Pegui, the Saulteaux chief. A prominent leader of his people, Pegui became famous for his role in aiding the Selkirk settlers, or the first white settlers of the Red River area. Upon their arrival at Red River in 1812, Pegui defended them, showed them how to subsist from the country, and later assisted the survivors after the Seven Oaks incident, a violent confrontation in the Pemmican War between the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Company. So he's comes from like a long line of very prominent Ojibwe men and women.
Okay.
If I may just say, the Battle of Seven Oaks is the funniest Canadian battle ever.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know that much about it.
So what happens is it's a bunch of Scottish settlers who are like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to face down all these Métis. Now, Métis had been fighting on the plains not only as buffalo hunters but against other indigenous groups on the plains for supremacy over certain buffalo stocks or bison stocks. Hilariously, they pulled the oldest ruse in the book and they just played possum after the first volley. So all these Red River settlers, all these Scotsmen fire off a volley. I think it was Miles Mack was there and he was a big wig in the colony at the time. They're like, yeah, we got him, woo! And then they got up and they fired back and they killed like a handful of them. Like it was just that is it. And they're like, oh god, no, they're actually not dead. So that's one of the funniest
Just
like
sleeping, just laying down, having a snooze.
Yeah,
exactly. We're just hiding in the tall grass. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, if you want to beat Scots, just like lay on the ground for 30 seconds. They're easy to trick.
I'm half Scottish and it tricks me every time. Spencer does that all the time
all
at
the
home.
time.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Hunter's like, why haven't you done the dishes? And I just pass out on the couch for a second.
And I'm like, oh, now I guess I got to do the
Oh
dishes.
my God, he's dead.
he's dead.
So the Broken Head Reserve on the outskirts of Winnipeg, where Tommy grew up, was not the same in 1915 as it had been in 1871 when Queen Victoria, under Treaty Number 1, set it aside for the Ojibwe tribe in perpetuity. Winnipeg was expanding. The urbanity scared away wildlife for hunting and polluted the waters for fishing. It also forced the Saulteaux people to be increasingly cramped together. Despite this, Tommy still learned to be a superb marksman and an excellent tracker on the reserve. His father, a hunter and trapper himself, taught Tommy everything he knew.
Cool.
So from a very early age, he's learning how to be sneaky.
Yeah.
He's a sneaky guy.
He's a sneaky little bugger.
So at 5 years old, Tommy began attending the Elkhorn Residential School, designed to corrode Tommy and the other children's indigeneity. Tommy told Mackenzie Porter in an interview for Maclean's magazine, "I learned a bit about farming science and a bit about machinery."
Nice.
Some good takeaways.
Some good takeaways from school.
As a teenager, Tommy wanted to be a lawyer, but his father explained to him that they neither had the money to send him to law school, nor would any law school accept an Indigenous person with a residential school education.
Woof.
Which is the point of having residential schools.
Systemic racism.
Tommy came to realize there was only one job that made the feeling of discrimination diminish, and it was one with a gun in his hand. As a teen, he joined the Army Cadets. Quote, "I liked being in the cadets at Elkhorn. As soon as I put on my uniform, I felt like a better man. I even tried to wear it in the classroom."
Aww.
So just trying to wear it everywhere.
He just really liked it. It's like a little boy on a t-ball team. Just wants to wear his uniform to bed.
But those are the old ones. Those are nice in wool. It's a nice
Yeah.
weave. They're
It's a
beautiful.
nice
They're
weave.
beautiful uniforms.
I've got to imagine. It's also, in Manitoba winters, I think you want every layer possible.
That you can have.
To be fair, I used to have old wartime army pants. I would wear them as snow pants because
Yeah.
they're wool. Like,
I was going to say,
what else do you want?
of course
home-
you did, Spencer. This does not surprise me.
Surprising no one.
Back home, we wear Dosco suits, which are like,
What's a Dosco suit?
they're the old steel plant suits.
Yeah,
Big
okay.
old, steel plant coveralls.
Grace also...
Becomes your snowsuit.
So last night, we were celebrating
Oh, no.
Halloween, and
I'm
Grace and her
worried.
brothers were all there.
Oh, yeah.
And Grace's younger brother, God love him, shout out to Colin. He goes, are there any fireworks tonight? And I look at him and go, what? And then all the McNuts are like, oh, no. Like, no. Like, shh.
Small child, stop. You're outing
And
us.
I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, at Cape Breton, there's always fireworks on Halloween. And then your brothers are like, and Christmas and Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day. And like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What crazy world? And then Grace's older brother was like, any excuse for people to blow shit up, you know? Like, that's Cape Breton.
At the age of 16, when he left school to work as a lumberjack, Tommy had only reached grade 8. So he's making a career move. He's like, I think I need to work in the woods. I wear a lot of plaid.
I need to go be with a beard. Just me and my beard and an
Me,
axe.
my beard, my axe, and all this forest.
Yeah.
But at 100 yards, he could put 5 bullets through an area as big as a playing card. So he has that going for him as well.
Ooh, he's a sharp shooter.
He's a sharpshooter. This marksmanship served him well through the Depression years. When he grew tired of looking for odd jobs or was short on cash, he could always just go up north with an old gun and take a deer.
Hell yeah.
So he loved to tell of his prowess of hunting in taverns, but one time he was thrown out of a beer parlor because he was Indigenous, and there's a long prohibition against Indigenous peoples. So to deal with this, he grew a mustache. The waiters took me for a Frenchman, and I was never thrown out again.
Hashtag Louis Riel.
So it turns out, just grow a mustache if you don't want to get thrown out of bars.
I would just say grow a mustache anyway, but that's just me.
To note, Spencer is sporting quite a mustache right now.
I trimmed a good bit off. I was like,
It was
100.
quite curled in your photo yesterday. Quite like the tips
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So I think like this is Tommy's origin story. Like I'm pacing this as if it were a movie. This is like Act 1.
Okay.
First half of Act 1, maybe.
Okay.
So
Tommy's
shut up and let you get
origin.
to it.
Yes.
Let's get to the meat and bones of it. No, absolutely. Please interrupt me. That's where the fun is. So at the outbreak of World War II, Tommy volunteered to fight with the Canadian Army, and although he easily met the requirements for recruitment, he was turned down several times. Indigenous people faced widespread discrimination from the armed forces, and that likely played a role in his rejection. However, in 1940, at the age of 24, Tommy finally managed to successfully enlist in the Army. He began his military career as a sapper with the Royal Canadian Engineers on Home Guard duty in England. His duty was to basically guard a dump. So he's like
real garbage?
like a garbage dump. That's his home front duty.
Which is so bizarre because one of the best Canadian snipers of the First World War was also Indigenous.
Oh, really?
Well, this is just, I don't...
No, but if you think about it, and I mean, Grace is definitely more of the expert on Indigenous and Aboriginal affairs.
I've just studied it.
She's
I don't
just
think
studied
I'm
it.
an expert.
But I would say if you kind of look at just like the hunting and trapping aspect, doesn't it make sense that you would in your like upbringing and your heritage and like your culture, if you're like Aboriginal, if you had like grown up like that hunting and trapping always, that you'd have a better idea of how to use like weaponry. Like I know it's different, but like just the idea of like setting your sights on like a target and being able to like fieldcraft. Like wouldn't you just wouldn't that kind of be not like, I know it's not genetics, but like wouldn't that just be like something kind of more ingrained into you?
Yeah, and I also think there's probably an element of like, this sounds extremely callous, but like hunting animals is not that much different from hunting people.
No,
Like,
and that's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm
have
saying without saying
experience.
There's a great book called On Killing, and in it they talk about how everyone who talks about killing someone in combat, it's like killing a deer. They feel the same kind of
remorse.
sensation after. It's
Well,
remorse and it's a
it's-
sickness, and it's like you do it and it feels the same way. I'm not saying that killing a deer is ethically or morally the same as killing a human.
Yeah.
But
But mechanically, it's very
it's the
similar.
We
same
just
thing.
watched a great episode. Grace and I have started watching. Well, Grace has already watched it all, but I've been watching Departures,
Love
which is a
that
great
show.
show about two awesome
If
guys.
you ever want Canadian nostalgia for like 2007, watch the show Departures.
if you ever want to see men being vulnerable,
So good,
Canadian boys growing into men, go watch Departures.
Yeah.
But they
If Scott and Justin and Andre ever wanted to be on this podcast, they have an eternal.
we're
like,
here for
invite.
it. We are here for it. Andre, you too. Yeah,
Absolutely.
always. But there is an episode where I forget where they were, but they do go on a pig hunting expedition.
Yeah, Cook Islands.
Cook Islands. And he's talking about, like, one of the cast is talking about how when they went on this pig hunting expedition, like killing the pig, how he thought that it would feel different than it did. But it was just like such a systematic, like, this is your target, this is what you're doing, this is what you do. This is how you like kill the pig. And so like he's like, it didn't even really register to me. He's like, it didn't feel like when you're in the moment, like when you're doing this cultural experience with these people who've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
He's like, it just feels like it's like a natural like task that you're set to do.
Yeah, and I think it's just like if you've grown up hunting your whole life, you're probably more comfortable in that position in another
100%.
context.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I will also say at this point that I think Tommy Prince needs to be added to the Minute Women Hall of Fame of hunks. Because the boy is extremely good looking.
Pictures didn't happen. Let me see.
Sorry, this may not be relatable content, but
Can you appreciate Can you appreciate a good looking man?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Well, here we go.
All right. So this is him and his brother in uniform. Mm-hmm. So that's Tommy, and this is his younger brother.
Oh, I grew up
guy,
surrounded by pictures of him.
Which one's Tommy, right or left?
Tommy is the shorter one.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Tommy.
He's so cute. Am I right?
He is a cute little happy. Look at those cheeks.
I know.
I just want to squeeze him. And he also looks like he's like kind of like thick fit.
Yeah, like I
like
think
that.
like just imagine him in uniform guarding the dump every day, like in England. That's him.
He would probably, and he'd be like the guy who, like, if a little kid walked by and was like, "Hi, mister," he'd like take the time to say hi.
absolutely
Love that.
Yeah. So for 2 years, this kind of monotony hung heavily on him. He doesn't like what he's doing. His nights consisted of essentially being an exotic oddity to the locals.
Right.
In a pub, sooner or later, some Englishman would approach him and be like, "Are you a real red Indian?" Tommy said. And Tommy would nod, and the Englishman would add, "I've never met a real Red Indian before. My children would be awfully interested. Will you come to tea on Sunday?
Would he go?
What year would this have been?
So this is
43, 44?
Yeah, this is like the 40s. So he serves on the home front in England from 1940
So you
to
got to think
1942.
like this is peak, like John Ford.
Oh, this
You
is
know,
peak. This is like
no, but
Peter
John-
Pan times where
Yes,
the whole movie
yeah,
Peter Pan,
exactly.
there's like a song about like the Red Indian.
No, but I'm
man.
just saying like John Ford, John Wayne,
Oh yeah,
like
100%. This is
Western.
it's
Western.
giving.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Like everything is being filtered through these Hollywood films. And
Oh,
most of the
100%.
ingestion
Yeah.
of what native culture would be through these movies. You know,
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
exactly.
like these John Ford type westerns. You know, that
Yeah,
yeah.
they vary in quality, but still, that's what most people would know.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's definitely this sense that it's like something that's exotic that is there for your consumption,
exactly.
Yeah.
not like
Well,
this is a person.
No, and it's also just like I think from a general point of view, as we just discussed, he's a good-looking young man.
yeah, who
and
seems
so like
approachable.
looks more approachable.
Yeah, he's trim. He's in his uniform.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think people would be like okay
Yeah.
going up. To him.
Obviously, the Canadian military trusts him enough to watch a dump, like so we can trust him with our children.
That picture's an older picture too. That's not him at this time because he's sergeant in that picture.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
that's got to be later. That's from him later in the war, or maybe he served in Korea as well.
Oh, okay.
Right, so that might be later on. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Spencer's a good guess though.
If I gotta say this though, I feel for my boy Tommy. Nothing's worse than like joining and then going somewhere and it's like, sweet, well, we don't know what to do with you, so we're just gonna have you stand here and check IDs, and you do that
All day.
for 3 months straight.
Oh, was this from experience?
It was a dark
this may or
time.
may not be from experience.
A dark time in
dark
Spencer's
time.
life. So Tommy was tired of being merely a curiosity, and he was scared that he'd never get to serve at the front. In 1942, however, his opportunity arose. Part 1 orders were called in 1942 for volunteer paratroopers, and Tommy was an early volunteer. He wound up being one of 9 selected from hundreds who attended the paratrooper training in Manchester. So this is also like the scariest thing you can possibly do.
Paratrooper,
But
like
he's very desperate.
parachute?
Yeah. So this is like
Yikes.
Band of Brothers. Like if you've watched Band of Brothers.
Oh, I have.
If I may, the Band of Brothers, like 101st Airborne in that, like cool, respect, but like British paras are still like the para. If you're a para, that's huge. Like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
those to the Brits, that like nothing compares to that except for like SAS. Really, when it comes to
Yeah.
like British Army and just stuff you can join off the street.
And for those of us who don't know what SAS is,
It's the Special Air Service, which also formed during the Second World War. But they
I
were
did
desert
actually
patrol,
know
yes.
that, but I could
didn't.
tell that you
I
did it.
didn't.
so.
Sorry, they did. The SAS
you.
came to prominence in the 80s as a counterterrorist.
I know you work for the
Oh, I
Coast
see.
Guard. I know they're all about acronyms, but can you please just like say it out loud for all of us?
The Minuteman podcast is about dumbing it down.
This is
it
not
down.
the MWW or minute, the MWP. That would be our acronym.
we got there.
Yeah.
LNG with the MWP.
Now, can I get that in the phonetic alphabet, please?
Oh, I can do it, but not right now.
Mike Whiskey
now.
Papa? Mike Whiskey Papa.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's kind of funny.
Which
actually.
I
like
always
that.
thought it was microphone, but it's not.
Just Mike? Just Mike. Not even microphone, not Michael.
Just Mike.
Just Mike. So yeah, he's one of 9 selected out of hundreds who attended the paratrooper training. During assault exercises, which followed the drop, it was noticed that he had a natural instinct for the ground. He could wriggle forward on his belly with agility and take advantage of a 12-inch depression in an otherwise flat field to conceal himself completely. He was a magnificent shot. He also had the survival skills to live out in the open. For the first time, his peers were willing to treat him based on his merit and not on his race.
Yes, buddy, go get it.
That being said, Tommy often took the opportunity to poke fun at his comrades' naivete about indigenous peoples. So whenever mail would arrive from his dad, he would always joke and say, "I've got a smoke signal from the chief." It is so good.
And then all of the white guys would
Like,
go,
what?
and then they'd go, ha ha ha. You made a joke.
It's just like, I think he's joking.
I don't. And then they look for smoke signals.
Yeah, it's like, but also my kids would be really interested in meeting you.
But
Would
also-
you come over to tea on Sunday? In September 1942, he was flown back to Canada to join the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion. By March 1943, he was sergeant. With pride, he got to visit the reserves around Winnipeg, wearing 3 stripes, wings, and a maroon beret. The Canadian Parachute Battalion was attached to the U.S. Special Forces, an airborne formation, and went into American uniforms. So he's actually not part of British paratroopers. He's part of American paratroopers, because that's who the Canadians are aligned with during the Second World War. Or at least this battalion was.
Yeah, attached to.
They became the first special service force, so first SSF, known to the enemy as the Devil's Brigade.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, there it is.
Jungle, mountain, amphibious, and ski training followed in Canada.
Jungle, mountain, amphibious, and ski
training.
Ski training.
Yeah. The ski training was just the trip, though. That was like their break. They were like, all right, now we're going to go skiing.
And now we're going to go to,
I'm really good at après.
Sugarloaf.
I'm really good at après ski special service forces, but not so much actual ski.
Oh, that's funny.
And in the U.S., so they're training in both countries. Early in 1943, when Tommy was briefed for a drop on Japanese who had occupied the small island of Kiska in the Aleutians, he was exultant at the prospect of combat and dejected on the arrival to find that the enemy had withdrawn. So he's like, I'm super pumped. And then he gets there and they're already gone.
And he's like, man.
Yeah, and it's also at this point, like, we're in 1943, we're past D-Day, and he still hasn't seen combat yet. Or that's 44. You're right, sorry. Cut all of that.
Almost. That's okay.
But we're like, so wait. We're also in 1943, so he's been serving for 3 years, and he still hasn't seen active combat. So he's got, like, a lot of anxiety.
And we're getting close to D-Day.
We're getting close to D-Day, and he's just like, what if I never get to see combat?
Well, like, there's fighting in North Africa and Italy at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's like feeling like on the sidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, what am I going to do?
He's sad boy.
So he says, all my life I had wanted to do something to help my people recover their good name. I wanted to show they were as good as any white man. And now he's fearing that he's never going to get the chance.
Oh, buddy.
So he's not only like, he has a personal goal. He has like this like cultural weight of like, of like he's imagining other people's expectations, not necessarily like truly expectations put all on him.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've got to show to all these white people that we're just as good as them, regardless of like where we come from.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Oh, Tommy. Finally, in 1943, Tommy would get his opportunity to enter active combat. Soon after the capture of Naples by the Allies, Tommy's unit landed in Italy. Germany was holding the Gustav Line, an elaborately fortified defense hinging on Casino. In the night attack on Monte Maggio at the stepping stone to Casino, Tommy saw for the first time men riddled by bullets from Spado light machine gun, which fired so fast it sounded like a motorcycle revving. He learned to walk in a crouch whenever he heard mortar softly coughing up 9 big bombs, which would flutter through the air with no more sound than the beat of a bird's wing, and then burst around him with a loud bang. Anti-tank mines tossed a 4-ton Bren gun carrier. Anti-personnel mines sprung 3 feet from the ground, exploded, and discharged all around them. Little wooden shoe mines at the touch of a boot would take off a leg, and Tommy had to just press on through all of this. So this is like his first experience with combat, and it's just like everything.
Wow.
When he reached the top of the mountain, Tommy was surrounded by staggering comrades and sickly-looking Germans who were jumping out of holes and running away. He let out, in his accounts, he lets out this, like, really big shout because for the first time he's like, I've finally, like, proven it. Like, he's literally conquered this mountain. And for him, that's, like, he was, like, worth his salt, and that, like, all Indigenous soldiers, like, were due the same respect as everybody else. But you've also got to feel like your whole life you've been told that you're not equal and you're not good enough. So you've got to feel like that's also like just proving to yourself that you're like, everything I've always told myself is real. It's like I was right all along.
I've been to Casino.
Yeah,
I went there. I turned 19 in Italy, actually.
Oh, wow.
That's fun. Fancy that, hey?
So, yeah, he's like having this moment on the hill. Over time in the field, he proved superior to all his comrades because of his talent for being silent, swift, and unseen. The battalion made him the reconnaissance sergeant, so he would crawl out by night toward the enemy, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small patrol, listening to Germans murmuring and estimating their numbers. He would crawl out by day and watch the enemy runners dodging among the olive trees and fix their defensive positions. Before every attack, he would go out to the battalion front, and he always came back with information. So sometimes that information would be information that takes, like, Jeep ambulances. Sometimes it would be to take you to just, like, a safe place for, like, hide a radio truck.
Right.
Or it's, like, a little gully that would be great to cover the approach of a platoon. So he also just needs to know, like, every function of an offensive.
Right.
Because he's like, that could be useful, that could be useful, that
That's
could
all
be useful.
he has to know.
Yeah, that's it.
Nothing major. Right.
Sometimes he would just go out for 24 hours with a sniper rifle and just pick off people as much as possible.
Wow.
And that was just mostly as like a fear tactic.
Yeah.
It's just like, because if you know there's a sniper out there, it just causes like intense anxiety in the other
100%.
Well, I
And it
watched
makes
a lot of
Shockingly.
MASH as a child. Every season they had like a sniper episode
Oh,
of
there's
MASH.
a sniper.
Yeah.
One time he was sent out to find an enemy sniper that was harassing his own battalion, and the two wound up engaging in a sniper duel that ended when Tommy hit the German and brought him toppling out of a tree.
Eek.
Jesus.
However, Tommy is best known for his exploits at the Anzio beachhead, where he spent 90 days on the line in early 1944.
Jesus.
So yeah, you were mentioning like D-Day Dodgers. It's just like, yeah, he spent 90 days straight.
Wow.
And Anzio was like notoriously like a bungle on the Allied side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in February 1944, he volunteered to run a communication line 1,400 meters out to an abandoned farmhouse that just sat 200 meters from a German artillery position. He set up an observation post in the farmhouse and for 3 days reported on German movements via a communication wire. When the wire was severed during shelling, he disguised himself as a peasant farmer and just pretended to be working the land around the farmhouse. He stooped down to tie his shoes, fixed and was actually just fixing the wire while the German soldiers just watched, oblivious to the fact that this is a soldier.
So if you're an indigenous Canadian, you can pass off as French. Or Italian?
Or Italian.
Holy shit.
It just takes a mustache.
Just takes a mustache.
Just takes a mustache.
Okay, then.
What has
like
your
that?
mustache done for you, Spencer?
A great costume.
Great costume.
go.
A great
Great
costume.
Thank you.
Or
It's a
you can pretend to be
conversation piece.
Robert Pattinson in the movie Lighthouse. The Lighthouse.
Okay.
At one point, he shook his fist at the Germans. So I was like, okay, Tommy, let's not break character.
Yeah, let's just
Let's bring it in. Let's reel it in.
He's breaking kayfabe here. It's just not going to work.
But then he also, in a moment of realization, did it at the Allies to pretend he was in disgust with both
I
of them.
just hate war.
Well, it's just like, y'all ruined my farm.
Yeah.
Angry peasant farmer move.
He's literally
Classic.
being like, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Hey, crazy Krauts, get
You
off my
kids
lawn.
with your guns, get off my lawn.
His actions resulted in the destruction of 4 German tanks that had been firing on Allied troops. After 48 hours, Tommy returned to the Allied lines. His officer just said to him, "You crazy fool, if you'd been taken prisoner in those clothes, you'd have been shot out of hand." So it's just like, well, they're not going to pay you any respects just because like you're dressed as a civilian.
So if we're doing the movie, this is a point like in a like Lethal Weapon where the sergeant is yelling at him. Being
I
like,
got
you
the mayor,
crazy
yeah.
kid.
I
And
got
then he,
the
like,
mayor
punches him
breathing
on the
down my
shoulder.
neck. I want your badge and gun on my desk by 2 o'clock.
And then he turns
And then
around
he,
and he's
like,
like, but
winks.
I get
Yeah, yeah.
results.
I get results, damn it.
Do you want the tanks back?
In France in the summer of 1944, Tommy took part in the seizure of coastal islands. On one occasion, with another man, Tommy sneaked through the German front and scouted 15 miles behind the enemy lines. They located the big German bivouac area.
Bivouac.
Bivouac.
That one I know
Thank you
from
very
Judge
much.
Equity.
Bivouac.
Bivouac area they were looking for, and they started back to report. On the way, they saw a skirmish taking place between a German platoon and a squad of FFI, so Free French partisans.
Nice.
The FFI were being encircled by Germans. Tommy and his comrade took up well-concealed positions and began to just pick off Germans from the rear. So they just stumble upon this little skirmish taking place, and they're like, "Oh well, I guess we'll stick around for a while."
Suppose so.
The German win in Rome, right? Am I right?
The German platoon commander was concentrating so heavily on the FFI, he never became aware of the 2 Canadians.
Okay.
The Germans never fired back, so the 2 Canadians might just as well have been in a shooting gallery. So because they never have a rear position, they're just shooting down people from behind.
Nice.
Great. Eventually, the German officer, surprised and shaken by the high casualties, just withdrew. Tommy then made contact with the FFI. The FFI officer asked him, "Where's the rest of your company?" And Tommy's like, "Here." And he's just pointing at the other private that's
Just
with
the
him.
one
It's
other guy.
Just us.
That's where the bass drop hits, right?
Yeah,
it's
it's
right here.
I just imagine the camera.
Well, I was
camera
gonna say,
just
no, that's
panning
where the,
over to one other dude.
Yeah.
See, I was thinking that's where the emotional music hits, where he's like, "It's just us,"
It's just us.
and they're like,
Oh no, it's
We're all writing a different kind of movie.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
A black comedy, a very moving war film.
So I'm thinking
Shitty
more
meme, right here.
I'm-
Mine's just it's the guys doing the dance at the funeral with the coffin on their shoulders. It's just them, and it's just this German commander on the side. They're
yeah. So I'm
So
thinking
you're
more
looking at the Mel Brooks version of this.
yeah, and I'm a few
100%.
good men.
You're a few good men.
I'm a few good men.
An officer and a gentleman, as done by Linnea.
You can't handle the truth. It's just me and him.
Maybe, yeah, you guys. Whenever
Did you
I need
just
a
say
ride,
an
someone
officer
to-
and a gentleman?
Yeah.
So it's going to be like Joe Cocker singing "Love Lift Me Up Where We Belong."
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that kind of like the song "Rise Again"? Because that's a jam.
What a bop.
No, it was just a weird movie to bring up.
Well, no, because
Wow.
Remember
Way
the
to
movie,
way to.
yeah.
Okay. It's not like pick on Spencer Day.
Oh no, actually, that you pick on Spencer Day's tomorrow, but he's getting
Oh.
it's pick on Spencer Day Eve. I'll take it.
So the FFI officer is just oh, I thought there were at least 50 of you.
And they were like,
It's just these
Hell
two
yeah.
dudes. Yeah.
So 2 Canadians equal 50 Frenchmen. Gotcha.
Gotcha. That's the math. But
"This
which
is
we
not a
don't do.
math."
Tommy went back to the Canadian-American lines after that. Almost immediately, Tommy then was set off again at the head of his battalion and led them to clear out the German bivouac. It'll never happen. area. Before that battle was over, he had covered 50 miles on foot without rest. This trek took place over 72 hours with no food or water. The Americans gave him the Silver Star, making him only one of 59 Canadians to receive such an honor, and the French recommended him for the Croix de Guerre. Cross of War.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, show Silver Star. That's 59 total, I believe.
Ever, not just
I
for
don't
the
think that's
Second
just.
World
I
War.
don't think that's just Second World War. That
Wow.
might be ever because that's
That's pretty awesome.
that's
This man
big
is
ups.
highly decorated.
He's the most decorated Indigenous soldier.
Yeah,
Yep.
in Canadian history.
Spoiler.
Well,
I feel like we
It's
were
all
gonna
right.
get there.
We're getting there
I'm
right
sorry.
now,
Oh, God,
Linnea.
I'm the worst.
You called it. When the Battle of Southern France was won, Tommy and the rest of the Canadians were detached from the Americans. So they're no longer part of the Devil's Brigade.
See you later, Uncle Sam.
They're separating. They returned to England, where Tommy was summoned to an investiture at Buckingham Palace to be awarded the Military Medal, only one of 3 Canadians to be given this honor. King George VI pinned Tommy's medal to his chest, saying, "I've seen you before." And Tommy's like, "Yes, sir. You spoke to me when you inspected my unit in Surrey 3 years ago."
Aww.
The king stayed and spoke with Tommy briefly, asking him about his service, as well as where he came from and what life was like back in Manitoba. Tommy remembers that he spoke to me for 2 minutes, but most others only got about 30 seconds. So he's like, well,
Well, hair flip.
hair flip.
Twirl that mustache, Tommy.
hell yeah.
He would also receive the 1939 to 1945 star, the Italian star, or the Italy star, the France and Germany star, the Defense Medal, the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal with clasp, and the War Medal.
Shoot.
So the man's just like weighed down by all these medals.
Decorated.
Decorated.
Tommy's a Christmas tree.
So after victory in Europe, Tommy volunteered for the Pacific Theater, but he wound up returning to Canada instead because war in Japan was achieved before he was able to head out that way.
Yeah.
Transitioning back to civilian life was not easy for Tommy, as it was true for many veterans. He found that his home was not the same, and he wound up divorcing from his wife.
Oh, he had a wife.
He did have a wife, but they don't, like, there's not much about her in,
Right.
like, his life before the war.
Right.
His father had died while he was overseas as well, and his dad was, like, a really big part of his life.
Yeah.
He made his living cutting wood pulp, so that's his new job.
So working at a mill?
Yeah, he's kind of gone back to, like, lumberjacking, but, like, not. So oppressive discrimination was once again back in his life. So, like, he's kind of had this brevity while he's in the military, and he's really proven himself. Not to say that, like, it had totally disappeared from his life, but it was more like his uniform at least was more important than the person inside of it in some ways, which is like also kind of dark. But now he's back in this situation where like race again is like the most important thing about him.
And sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were status and you served, didn't you have to forfeit your status at that time?
Yeah, so if you wanted to receive veterans benefits, you had to forfeit your status. It was a tactic to get Indigenous people to forfeit status. Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah. So when he
Some
applied...
would say it's genocidal.
culturally.
Systemic racism.
Every shade of genocide.
It's a rainbow of genocide.
Yeah, there's so many degrees. They're all bad.
Also bad.
When he applied for a game warden's job and was refused on account of his race, he was enraged. So he can't even get a game warden, which would be like literally what he does all the time, like controlling hunting in an area.
Yeah.
Like that would be, he would be like the best person to do that.
And he can't
they're
do that
like, no,
because he's indigenous?
He's indigenous. Yeah.
Which is, that's a layer of ridiculous.
So as an indigenous man, he's not allowed to vote in federal elections.
What year is this?
This is
in the 40s
1945. Yeah, indigenous people can't vote until 1960.
Because they're wards of the state for a long time.
If you are a status person, you haven't surrendered your status, then you can't vote until the 60s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you're a woman, you can't vote until the 70s. Is that how it goes with that?
Yeah, it's
Indigenous
it's different for women.
woman.
I'm not
Yes,
sure exactly what.
Yeah.
Because
the
my
date is, though.
aunt is status, and she couldn't vote until that passed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like you were saying, in spite of his wartime service, he's refused the same benefits as other Canadian veterans. Tommy left the reserve after a woman attacked him with a broken bottle at a dance in 1946, leaving him with facial lacerations requiring 64 stitches.
Jeez.
He started a business which briefly prospered. He wound up leaving it in the hands of some friends so he could serve as a spokesman for the Manitoba Indian Association, where he lobbied the federal government for changes to be made to the Indian Act.
Okay.
Before a special parliamentary committee, he complained about white encroachments on game and fishing rights. He asked for grants to Indigenous veterans, financial assistance for the establishment of a cooperative Indigenous farms, better schools for Indigenous children, and more teachers. Following his campaign, he came home to discover that the business he had entrusted to friends had failed in his absence. They had wound up smashing his truck, and the rest of his equipment was just missing. So he basically just stripped his business while he was gone.
Oh my God.
And at that point, he went back to working as a lumberjack in a pulp and paper mill, and he also worked at a local cement plant.
It's just I know that it's a known thing. It's like I know that it's like, racism is awful and like what, but it's just the way like veterans were treated. It's just awful. It's just that's not fair. Like you just did this really incredible, like brave act of service for your country and
that you're
multiple
for
countries
the rest of your life.
that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life with, and I mean, I know now we know more about like PTSD and like traumas and but I mean,
well, we have language to talk about it.
Yes.
But everyone always knew. Yeah. Like everyone always knew that people go away to war and they come back not
messed
the
up.
same.
Yeah.
Well, back then it was what, shell shock?
Not at that time.
World War I.
World War One.
That's World War One. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I really feel that like from the sounds of it, Tommy Prince should have his Heritage Minute not for his wartime service but for his post-war service.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that because my film treatment of this, I'm coming at it from a totally different angle. what we just talked about, all the post-war stuff, that would be the story.
Yeah.
Interspersed with flashbacks.
Yeah.
Because the man is what is valuable,
Yeah.
not his actions.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So
And that's kind of my takeaway from it, that it's like to focus on how shittily he was treated. We don't, as you said with Michael Caine, don't glorify the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it just so happened that he was like a Mozart, you know, like just naturally predisposed for this.
Yeah.
The real story is after the war.
Yeah.
So
And
tell me,
that's the story that needs to be told. We don't need another war story.
riddle me this. Does it get better?
So in early August 1950,
no.
when the Canadian government appealed for volunteers to fill Canadian Army Special Force to serve in the Korean War, Tommy re-enlisted in the Army immediately and joined the 2nd
So
Battalion.
how old is he right
Princess
now? He's like
Patricia.
35?
50, yeah, so he's in his 30s.
He's in his 30s.
Yeah. Tommy's previous service provided him with important experience, but had also taken its toll physically, and patrolling in rugged Korean terrain caused him great discomfort. His comrades noticed that Tommy was exhausted, dragging himself up and down hills, but with, like, he'd go up with this, like, wooden staff. In October 1951, Tommy was sent home, and he was duly posted to a training position at Camp Borton. So he's like, he's having a really hard time actually serving
Right.
because he's just like physically not capable to
Right.
do that anymore. But once he's back in Canada, discrimination starts to like pop up more
Right.
in his life again. So like that's the reason he went away. But
Yeah.
then he's sent back to Canada to serve at a training post. Once at a Halloween event, Tommy chose to present his like traditional regalia and demonstrate a traditional dance. So I think it's just kind of like a talent show almost. Like it's like a hall party, and you can come out and like do whatever you want. Tommy like does the dance, but then he like suddenly stops and he like walks off the floor, and he said that I was getting to the important part, and then they just all started laughing. So he felt like they're not appreciating what he's doing.
Oh.
Well, especially where dancing's such a huge part of your
Yeah.
culture too. Like,
Yeah, and I'm sure like it's not like he does this all the time either. Like it's
Yeah.
clearly this is like a very like special moment for him.
And to drive the point home, being in a war was preferable than being an indigenous man
Yeah.
in Canada.
Like he'd rather be overseas.
War was the better option.
Yeah.
A combat zone was a better option than being indigenous in the
Yeah.
country.
Soon after, he volunteered for his second tour of Korea in 1952. He was injured again and spent weeks in hospital, where he was still recovering when the Korea armistice came into force in 1953, ending the fighting. During 2 tours of duty in Korea, he won the Canadian Volunteer Service, and United Nations Service medals. So he's 3 more medals to his decorations. He returned to Canada and remained in the Army, serving at Winnipeg's Personnel Depot until September 1954, when he was honorably discharged. Tommy still had a strong sense of civic duty and a fierce pride in his people. He dedicated himself to attaining increased educational and economic opportunities for Indigenous peoples. He said, quote, with painfully arthritic knees as a result of the long, harsh conditions during his military service, his job opportunities were limited. He had a new common law wife at this point, Verna Sinclair, and they had 5 children together after 1953. And they moved the family back and forth between Winnipeg and the Broken Head Reserve. Coupled with the discrimination against Indigenous peoples, his life became increasingly difficult, ultimately ending in his estrangement from his family. By 1961, he had descended into alcoholism and poverty. He and Verna separated in 1964, and all of their children were placed in foster homes.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the movie.
This is going like Lars von Trier depression
Yeah.
area right now.
Still, there were always flashes of his innate bravery. In 1955, Tommy made headlines when he saved a man from drowning at the Alexander Docks in Winnipeg. In 1968, a Hollywood movie entitled The Devil's Brigade was released, and it portrayed Tommy and his elite World War II unit. And Tommy was referred to as Chief in the movie, of course. Let's remake that movie as well. Let's do that movie again.
Yeah.
I know a lot of veterans of the Devil's Brigade had a lot of problems with that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure
needless
they
to
did.
say.
I read the
Needless to
synopsis. It's questionable.
Yeah, yeah. Questionable with a capital Q.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So throughout the rest of his life, his personal life just keeps deteriorating, and alcoholism begins to like really overtake most of his life, resulting in his final years being virtually alone, living in a Salvation Army hostel.
Oh my God.
In order to support himself, he sold off his medals, though another source said that some of them may have been lost in a fire, but it does seem like the vast majority of them were just sold off so he could try and like make some change. So Tommy Prince died in 1977 at Winnipeg's Deer Lodge Center, a health care facility specializing in geriatric care and treatment of veterans, and he was interred in the Brookside Cemetery in Winnipeg. So that's sad, but
Yeah.
in 2000, Tommy's lost medals turned up in an auction in London, Ontario. So his family's desire to reacquire them attracted national media attention. On the 10th of August, they won back the medals with a staggering bid of $75,000.
They made them pay for it?
Yeah, they had to pay for the auction bid, but it was backed by pledges from Indigenous advocacy groups, the Royal Canadian Legion, and the Veterans Affairs Minister. In November of 2001, his medals were placed on permanent display at the Manitoba Museum of Man and Nature.
Now just the Manitoba Museum.
Oh,
They've switched the name,
it
yes.
has changed their name. Interesting. So since then, Tommy has kind of become a national figurehead. So it's really this story of getting his medals back that repopularizes him and it reintroduces him to kind of the national pop culture and like history. And so he's been commemorated in many ways since then. Most recently, in June of 2020, a group of Conservative Party members in Parliament started a petition and sent a letter to the Finance Minister and the Governor of the Bank of Canada to advocating to display Tommy on the Canadian $5 bill.
Wow.
So potentially in the future, Tommy could be on our
isn't
$5
it a
bill.
shame? Isn't it a damn shame that all of this stuff happens after people have like had the struggle and lived the life as like a
absolutely.
form of reparation?
This is like the thinnest of silver linings.
And, well, yeah, and I love how that's like the Conservative Party's gonna be like, see, we love our veterans. Just
Absolutely.
let us gut Veterans Affairs Canada again.
Yeah. I was like, let's not pay. Let's like love the troops, but not the veterans. Like as soon as you're not serving anymore, it's like not our problem.
It's the whole like quote unquote like pro-life thing where it's just like it's just like, oh no, don't worry, like we love life and every child deserves a chance, and you know life starts at conception.
The 40 million kids in foster care?
What happens once you're born? They don't give a shit about you. It's the same thing.
But also, I'm not gonna like improve your education.
Yeah, we're not going to give you a quality of life.
No.
No. God forbid that. It's the same thing with vets. Oh, we love our serving military. We love our vets until you actually go and fight a war for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's so.
That's it.
Well, so there's a little bit more. So
Okay,
so Tommy,
please tell me some more.
Tommy Prince's tombstone mentions only 2 of the 11 medals he earned, and he is one of the most decorated soldiers in Canadian history and the most decorated Indigenous war veteran in Canada.
Wow.
Aside from his significant military contributions to the country, Tommy is also remembered as an Indigenous advocate who fought for equality and Indigenous rights. Tommy's nephew, Jim Bear, told CBC News in 2020 that he remembers his uncle as a visionary who was in favor of abolishing the Indian Act, something Bear points out as we're still trying to change.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
On February 10th, 2010, it was announced that Canadian actor Adam Beach would portray the Canadian war hero in the upcoming movie about his life. According to Bay Film Studios, the movie is a true account of Canada's most highly decorated First Nations soldiers. And Beach said that it was like the honor of a lifetime to play somebody
amazing.
like Tommy.
He was in North of 60.
Yes,
He was,
indeed. I think he's an incredibly moving person who, like, obviously, you can, like, really hone in on his military service, which was extremely commendable, and he probably saved, like, countless Canadian and Allied lives during the Second World War based on his actions. But it's like the fight doesn't end when he comes home because you see how blatant the racism was that he faced. And not to say veterans are treated well, but to be an Indigenous veteran on top of that is just this whole other category. And he basically dies in absolute obscurity, estranged from his family, because we weren't there to help him.
Well, that's the sad truth of that is that everyone wants to be on your side when you're winning, right?
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be in your corner, and I think after a while it's like, oh yeah, but what have you done for me lately, right?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And like Tommy Prince, I know growing up, like that was just a name, especially being from Manitoba and being in those parts of the province, and that we just knew him, and so it was kind of one of those things that it was so crazy that, because that's a later Heritage Minute too, is it not?
It's one of the 2005 ones they rolled out for the commemoration of World War II.
And am I wrong, or doesn't Adam Beach play him in that Heritage Minute?
So the Heritage Minute is his funeral.
Yes.
Oh, it's that
It's
one.
his nephew.
They put him back into
Right.
That,
Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's that. Okay. I was trying to think of which one it was, but it's that one. Okay.
Yeah,
I know
which
exactly which one that
I do
one is.
appreciate, because it is like Hunter said, like you could make a super cool, like guns blazing Heritage Minute if you wanted to, and it's like clearly they're not opposed to that. Like Osborne is like that,
but that's not what it's about.
Congo is like that. Valor Road is like that. Yeah. So for them to like really hone in on the fact that it's like, no, he's like someone that we've recently lost, and you know.
Okay. So again, thank you so much to Hunter and Spencer from North of Normal for coming to the show today, and for entertaining and listening and just being
providing
present.
A lot of insight.
Providing insight to this episode. And just being here with us, because you guys are great, and we just really enjoy collaborating with you. So thanks so much.
Do you guys have any like pluggables, like your links and everything that you want to share with everybody? Maybe like summarize what your podcast is very briefly.
We're still plugging away in our little corner of the internet. Just recorded an episode before coming here, so still going on. Best places to go: Facebook, North of Normal, and Instagram, North of Normal Pod. I always post what episode we're doing a few days beforehand, so if it's a movie that you haven't seen, you have an opportunity to seek out in various forms to watch it and be up to speed when the episode drops. Awesome. Because Canadian cinema, a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to see a lot of these films, so I'd like to give a heads up.
Hell yeah. Support local culture.
Support local culture. Yeah, support Canadian cinema. Maybe we'll get a cool Tommy Prince movie someday, and we can come back on the North and Normal podcast to discuss it.
Hell yeah.
And Linnea and I have some exciting news that we should share. So this episode,
we have super exciting news.
This episode drops on November 4th.
Drops. Boom.
And on November 5th, we are doing our first ever live show. So we're going to be at Pickford and Black in Halifax.
Yep, starting at 8 p.m. And there are going to be $13 pictures?
I think $15 pictures, but still an incredible deal that you cannot pass
You cannot
up.
and free cover.
No cover.
And we get to entertain you.
Yeah, and you can like see us do it in person in our awkward selves.
What more could you want?
I will just say it's worth it. See the magic happen in person.
And if push comes to shove, Hunter and I will be there, and we'll be yelling things from the back. It'll be great.
Perfect. If you have any comments for North and Normal Podcast or controversial opinions, you can tell it to their face at Pickford and Black.
We'd love to see you there. We'd love to have some support from people who aren't going to like throw food at us or just completely ignore us. We'd like to have some people interested in hearing what we have to say.
There will be security at the door, and tomatoes will not be allowed in.
Not allowed at all.
No tomatoes are allowed into the venue.
This is an interesting setup where Grace and myself, Linnea, are both bringing historical topics to the table that aren't Heritage Minutes.
Yes.
Spoiler.
So we're debuting a new thing called Should Have Been a Minute.
Yeah.
And so we're going to both pitch what we think should be Heritage Minutes. And I know from my perspective, it's fucking crazy.
And let me tell you, they are wild. So it's going to be a really fun time, and we would absolutely love to see you there.
So to all you Haligonians, make the effort. Come down on Thursday night, November the 5th, 8 p.m. Pickford and Black. 2 Minute Women Live.
Be there or be a loser.
That's how that saying goes.
Again, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. And we love to have your feedback. So please make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels. There you can reach out to us and make comments, and we ask a lot of questions. So we'd love to have your feedback and hear from you. On Instagram and Facebook, we are at Minute Women Podcast. And then on Twitter, we are The Minute Women. So yeah, give us a follow. Keep up to date with all of our fun news, and go get your flu shot. It's flu
now
season.
More than ever.
Now more than ever. It is time. I've heard that it sucks this year. It's kind of going to make your arm hurt, but it's worth it.
It's very important.
Do it.
Men and women are advocating going get your flu shot.
And North and Normal, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Spencer got his today. So.
No,
Up top.
It was a week ago now.
A week ago now. Okay.
No, but it sucks. But you know what? It's your civic duty.
Yeah.
Think of Tommy
Duty.
Prince. Do for Tommy.
For public health.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Do it.
And make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. Make sure you download the episode so you can listen to it on the go. And make sure to leave us a review, especially if you are a user of Apple Podcasts. The mythic algorithm of the internet has decided that Apple Podcast listeners are more important than everyone else. That's not how the Minute Women feels, but that is how the internet feels. So please leave us a star rating.
Please.
Please leave us a little review. It's the biggest help to us. And also make sure that you just kind of like spread the word and share the podcast with all of your friends, because word of mouth is the best review.
And Thursday, be there, 8 p.m., Pickford and Black. $16 pictures.
$15 pictures. We'll never get the price right.
I'll
but
get
it's
it
fine.
eventually.
We promise it's a great deal. All right.
Bye.
Bye.